Hi, welcome to the third video in Module 3 of Student Success Strategies, Tools for Top Achievers in College and Beyond. In the last video, we discussed the Scrum cycle and a process to keep you accountable, situationally aware, and manage the execution of your work over a 2-week sprint. In this video, we will discuss how to quantify and measure the work that you are delivering over the course of your sprint. We call this pointing. Pointing is a method of assigning value to how much effort, resources, and time a specific task may take. In order to do this, we use a numerical value based on the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is a mathematical representation of the golden rule found in nature, replicated in art, and used here to measure our work. The number sequence takes on the most recent two numbers in sequence added together to form the next number in the sequence. The sequence we will use is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21. So to break that down, 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 3 plus 5 equals 8, and so on. When using these numbers to quantify our work, it will always be relative to the individual and the team performing the work. For example, a journeyman electrician may be able to install a new light switch or fixture very easily. For them, it may be a 1 or 2 when pointing. An apprentice might consider it a 2 or 3 just because they aren't as well practiced, efficient, or as fast in that kind of work. For a newbie DIYer who is trying to install this light fixture for the first time, it may be a 13 or more. Why? Well, the first-time DIYer needs to spend time learning by watching YouTube videos, buying specific tools, making some mistakes, and then fixing those mistakes. That extra training, learning, trial and error, and rework of mistakes is what drives that number up. It is the combination of volume, complexity, knowledge, and uncertainty that increases the points you apply. The electricians have the knowledge, the tools, and the experience not to make simple mistakes, thereby decreasing the complexity and any need for additional knowledge, increasing the level of certainty and reducing the volume of effort required to complete the task. The only reason the number might be slightly different for the apprentice is his lack of experience and efficiency in completing that work. The takeaway here is that pointing is contextual and depends on the individual and/or team. For this course, you are essentially just pointing for yourself. So these numbers will be dependent on your level of certainty, knowledge, understanding, and complexity of the work, and how much work needs to be completed. One trap that many fall into, and it is so easy to do, is to start using time as a way to measure the value of points. 1 point might equal half a day. 2 points, a day's work, 3 for half a week, and 5 for a full week to complete a task. Now, don't get me wrong, there are lots of professionals who do this as a heuristic quick fix to standardize points across teams and departments. However, as you improve your skills, proficiency, experience, and expertise in using these tools and the subject matter of your courses, these numbers will naturally change. Something that once might have taken you a lot of effort and time because it was new to you and you were learning might later seem simple and quick to execute as you get better at it. This means a task you may have given a high point value before now is much lower as you get better at it. Yes, time is a factor to consider when pointing, but think about how much effort you need to put into it. How certain are you of all the work that needs to go in to what you're doing? Maybe you start researching a paper only to discover that finding sources that support your thesis is really hard or easier than you thought. Maybe you have to sort a large volume of references, though each one is simple to find. If you are doing a lab requiring a bacterial culture or some kind of testing that has a fixed duration to it, maybe that is the criteria that increases the points. Perhaps the scarcity of equipment or constraints on testing versus how complex the technical components are is the determining factor for your points. At the end of the day, you don't need to be perfect. You will make mistakes, and that is okay. The more you practice pointing and the better you will get at it, the more valuable it will become for you. 2 more points on pointing, pardon the pun. 1. Pointing may be done when reviewing your backlog using the Eisenhower matrix to prioritize your to-do list. Pointing shall be done when organizing your sprint backlog at the start of every sprint. You need to do it for the sprint backlog in order for you to understand how much work you can or can't do in that 2-week period. By doing it in the backlog, or otherwise known as the to-do list, you can better appreciate and plan what you can reasonably accomplish over the planning increment of your roadmap. For example, you may realize that you can only handle 20 points worth of work in a sprint. When you are sprint planning, you load up on work and it comes to 19 points. Well, you could have done 22 if you added that one 3-point task, but you know it would overload you and you might not get it done. When looking at your roadmap, you can see based on all the work for the semester that there will be a month where you will max out your 20 points for 2 sprints. But the rest of that time, you can keep in between 16 to 18 a more manageable number for you. That 3-pointer you missed out on this sprint based on your roadmap can easily be made up and handled in the next sprint. This has the effect of reducing anxiety and stress by creating more situational awareness and certainty for you on when work needs to be done to meet your goals. Now, I'm not saying it will be, I'm not saying it will completely eliminate the need for all-nighters because, stuff happens. But between road mapping, backlog grooming, sprint planning, and pointing, you can better and more accurately forecast what you can do and how well you can do it. To get started with pointing, when planning your first sprint, find the smallest, easiest, shortest task or piece of work or story in your backlog. That item will be your reference point for a 1-point piece of work. Everything else you do or point will be using that 1-point item as your reference for the rest of the pointing. When you start your second sprint, do the same thing again. Find the smallest, easiest, shortest task and use that as your 1-point floor that everything else is based on. Over the first semester, you will see that number change based on what was a 1-pointer in sprint 1 versus a 1-pointer in sprint 10. And that is normal and to be expected. You will get better at understanding what the points mean for you and how to best determine that number to use as you continue to use this system. For the first semester, just point in your sprint planning. Once you've practiced and have some data to better contextualize your pointing, you can start applying this to your backlog as you update it before every sprint. The more you do it, the better you will get at it and the better you'll feel. In the next video, we will cover how to keep from getting overloaded by using work in progress or WIP limits.